Hello friends, how's it going? It's me, Betty Jean. In today's video, I'm kind of piggybacking off a video I did recently where I chatted about if I could only keep one palette from all these different eyeshadow brands, which one would I keep? Super hard, such a struggle of a video trying to figure out which palette I would keep if I could only keep one. I've done that kind of video a few times, and my friend Rachel recently did that on her channel, so that's what inspired me. I'll of course have her channel down below. Even though it's challenging for me, it was fun to kind of do it again because it's been a while since I did it. And I asked you guys if you wanted me to do the flip side of that scenario where I chat about if I had to declutter one palette from each of those brands, what would I pick? And you guys wanted to see it, so I'm here today. This was so difficult, especially because I just did my declutter series at the end of last year. So everything that I have are things that I genuinely enjoy. Like, I'm looking at all of these palettes now and I have no intention on decluttering any of them. So I don't know what I'm supposed to do, but I have my pile next to me. In some cases, it just happens to be my least favorite palette from the brand. In some cases, I went with, maybe it's not my least favorite, but it's the one I could live without based on the other things that I'm keeping. And it's so funny. I don't know why this version of that video is harder than the other one, because in that scenario, I'm only keeping one of each, landing it at 19 palettes total. In this case, I still have all the other palettes from each brand. I'm just getting rid of one, but it just feels like I'm picking on a palette. So I'm also gonna be explaining kind of, even though it's the one that I would be the most likely to declutter if I had to, why am I keeping it? Why hasn't it been decluttered? Stuff like that. Like I mentioned last time, I'm only chatting about eyeshadow brands that I owned at least 5 eyeshadow palettes from, just because I felt like that made it more of a challenge. If I had less than that, it just, I don't know, makes my options less. So this is what we're gonna do today. And if you're surprised by any of the choices that I make and you think that I would have decluttered something else, there's a chance it's already been decluttered. I can't stress enough. I just did a declutter recently, so everything that I own are things that I genuinely love. So this is a tough one, but I'm excited for it. Before we hop into the video itself, I did of course film this look. It should already be up on my Instagram and YouTube shorts by the time this video goes up. And as far as my accessories go, these earrings are Spooky Doodle Club, and this is just an old basic choker. But without further ado, let's just hop in and chat about all 19 of these palettes that I would declutter if I had to declutter one from each brand. All right, let's just kick it off. I have these in no particular order. We're just gonna go with it. The first brand we're gonna talk about is Blend Bunny. And I was so stressed trying to pick out a palette for this, but then I realized I kind of have an out where it's technically a palette from them, but it's not like their other palettes. It's the quad. The Trove Quad. This launched with the Lure collection. It's just like a quad of multi-chromes, and it's so cute. It's beautiful. It's breathtaking. I love these. But if I had to declutter one of my Blend Bunny palettes, this is the one that would go for sure. Because even though it's beautiful, I don't reach for this all the time. This is definitely a companion to other things, whereas all of the other Blend Bunny palettes are just so perfectly curated and made so well and just flawless. I love the arrangement of the gradient mattes, the pastels to deeps, the shimmers. Everything is just so good. I can't bear to part with any of them, so this is the one I would have to let go of. But again, I don't want to. The reason I keep it is because these are beautiful. I have no intention of getting rid of this. I think these are amazing. It's just the one that I could live without if I had to. Moving on now to Kaleidos. This one is definitely my least favorite. It's just the one that's least inspiring for me, the one I'm least likely to reach for. I don't even think this exists anymore because they declutter all the cool things. But this is definitely the one I could live without. It's the Cyber Bronze palette. The packaging is just so cool. Honestly, the packaging and keeping this with its complete set is the main reason why I keep this, because I definitely don't like need it. It looks like this. It's just like mostly neutrals, a couple reds, a silver. It's not groundbreaking for me. They're warmer neutrals too. It's just overall not my complete vibe. Like the silvers and reds are pretty, but this isn't one that I'm like obsessed with. It's not one that I reach for, mostly keeping it for sentimental reasons and the fact that the packaging is so cool. And I want it to stay with the others, and especially because this is not available anymore and all the Futurisms got discontinued, unfortunately. I feel like I have to hold on to these forever now, so that's that. Moving on to Fantasy Cosmetica. I did not know what to pick for this one. This was really, really tough because I love all of her palettes so much. She does such a good job. But I ended up going with, again, just kind of the one I'm least likely to use. Like if I had to use all the palettes, like which one am I gonna grab for last? It's probably gonna be the Fighter palette, as beautiful as this one is. It's like a kind of their version of a neutral palette. We have sort of a mixed metals thing. I honestly love the fact that we have the combination of like the cool with the warmth, the golds with the silvers, this really cool bronzy rose gold in the middle. It is such a cool palette. It is so fun, like such a great representation of like a neutrally mixed metals vibe. But for me and my makeup preferences and my makeup taste, I'm always gonna pick the colorful palettes over this one that she's come out with. They're just so good. And even though the formulas in this are amazing, this is the one I could live without if I absolutely had to. But it's amazing. The formulas are incredible. I love having this around in case I wanted to play with like different metallic kind of vibes. So that's why I'm not decluttering it, for real. Oh, I'm still unsure about this one. Moving on to Game Beauty. I did not know what to pick for this either, especially because I have decluttered some Game Beauty palettes in my day, just things that don't stick with me like long term, things that are more forgettable or just overall not my favorite. So the ones that I have are ones that I enjoy. So I just really had to decide what could I live without if I had to get rid of one. And as much as it pains me, I went with the Phantom Thieves palette. This is from the Persona 5 Royal collab, and I really enjoyed this game. This collab introduced me to that game, honestly, and it's been so fun. But this is the palette I could live without. It's kind of just like a play on a rainbow. It's not complete classic rainbow vibes, but it's basically a rainbow with a black and a white. I feel like I can get all these colors, not only in my collection in general, but variations of them throughout the brand already. So this one isn't a must-have. The main reason I keep this one kicking around is because I do think it's fun. The formulas are nice, but it's the theming. The theming has me. I love it. I think it's so cool. But color story-wise and objectively-wise, it's the one I could live without. Moving on to Colourpop. When I went to my Colourpop area, and I don't have that many. I've been pretty brutal decluttering Colourpop over the years and not feeling the need to collect everything because they just went through a phase where they launched way too much. I'm so glad that they've slowed down. But I forgot I even had this one. And I feel like the fact that I completely forgot that I even had it on my shelf made it the perfect candidate for what I would declutter if I had to. Again, I don't plan to, but we'll see how I feel at the end of the year. If this is still kind of forgettable in my mind by the end of the year, I could see it potentially getting decluttered for real. But it's the Sprinkle a Little Magic palette. It's the Tinkerbell palette, if you will. It's very cute. I do like this color story. I think the formula's fun. I like this greenish, bluish pops of pale pink. It's really fun. But again, it was just kind of forgettable. I literally forgot I had it on my shelf, so it made it the perfect candidate for this particular video. Moving on to Wicked Widow Beauty. This is another one that I really did not want to pick one. I didn't want to pick one at all. But I just had to kind of really sit with my thoughts on this one and decide like which one could I live without, which one am I least likely to use compared to the other things. And as cool as this palette is, it's gonna be this one. It's the Twisted Tea Party palette. It's super cute, super fun. I love the Alice in Wonderland theme. I think it's so bonkers, if you will. It's just, I think my main gripe with this one is I wish there was a darker matte, which I know is so nitpicky. I can pull in a darker matte. I'm well aware of that, but just as a complete palette, I wish one of the matte shades was darker. Like I think a dark blue would have done this really well. But that's just being so nitpicky. This is a great palette. I think the formulas are so nice. The shimmers are really, really pretty. I think it's so fun, which is why I don't plan on decluttering it. But if I had to, based on what I already own from the brand, this is the one I think I could let go of. And moving on to Shroud Cosmetics next. Again, I want to just have a little chat. I mentioned in the last video, just kind of addressing that. I know that people placed orders with her, I think back in November, and then she kind of went silent. Orders weren't being fulfilled. I know a lot of people canceled their orders like with their bank even because they couldn't get in touch with her. And myself included, I'd mentioned that I also can't get in touch with her. I'd done everything that I can to try to reach out to her, reaching out to a mutual friend, all that stuff. Still haven't heard anything. Since filming that video, I've been told by a couple of you guys that she has sent emails to people who had existing orders still, just apologizing for the delay. I guess she's gone through personal stuff and she's gonna be working on getting those orders out. So I'm so happy to hear that she's alive and that everything's okay. I personally still haven't heard from her myself. At this moment, at least. Things might have changed by the time this video goes up, but I am happy to say that she's at least alive, and supposedly she's working on current orders. So that makes me happy. I am still having very weird feelings right now. I am so glad that she's okay, but I hate that any of this even happened, you know? But I still have Shroud to talk about for this video, and I'm gonna talk about which one I would get rid of if I had to. And this is really, really tough because I've loved Shroud for years. I have such a close bond with the brand, and that's partly also why this whole mess has been so hard on me. Like, I just hate it. I feel like I have such an attachment to the brand, and when things were going weird, I didn't know how to feel, but at least she's okay. That makes me happy. But trying to pick one to declutter is so hard. I know I've decluttered the Divinity just because it was getting kind of old. Her formulas have improved so much since the Divinity, and I just didn't need that one anymore. But all the ones I still have are ones that are so amazing. But out of all the ones that I have and the ones that I love to use, the one that I would declutter if I had to would probably be the Peaches and Dreams, which I hate. I didn't see this coming because I love this palette. Again, I have no intention on decluttering it. I think this is a spring dream. I think this is so freaking cute. The shimmers are incredible, but her other color stories just scream to my soul so much more so. If I had to, I think this is the one I could live without. But it breaks my heart, and I'm not gonna declutter it, that's for sure. Next, moving on to Melt Cosmetics. This is another one that was tough because any palettes that I've just been not thrilled with color story wise, I have since decluttered. But I love almost everything I've ever tried from Melt, so this was really tough. But again, thinking of it more in the sense of what could I live without if I had to? What could I just reach for other things for if I wanted a similar vibe? It's the Millenial Pinx. This one doesn't exist anymore. I actually used it recently in like a makeup throwback type video, and it's beautiful. I love the bluey grays with the pinks. It's just so fun. I think it's such a weird color story and it's so cool, but out of all my Melt palettes, I just love the other ones so much more. I think this formula is great. I think the color story is cool, so I don't plan on decluttering it. But if I absolutely had to, I can grab bluish grays from other palettes. I can grab pinks from other palettes. I have other options, so it's not like I'd be without these vibes. I mean, that goes with all these palettes. I could get the vibes in other places if I tried really hard and like mixed and matched. So if I had to let go of a Melt one, that would be it. Moving on now to Cosmic brushes. As much as it pains me, I knew pretty quickly what it was gonna be. The Gothic palette, only because I'd hesitated initially on even buying this one just because I wanted more than just purples. And I think it's stunning, and I'm so happy I have it in person. Like, I feel like I've had such a great time playing with this one. It's so cool. I love the combination of the warmth and the cool, but the other palettes are just so much more iconic. I love that there's so much more unique color stories. It's not like sticking in the monochromatic realm. So even though I think this is absolutely stunning, the formulas are amazing. This is so deliciously lovely to work with. I don't need it. You know what I mean? I don't need any of it, but compared to the other Cosmic Brushes palettes, this is the one I could let go of the easiest probably. Moving on to Odin's Eye. This is another one where I really struggled because I have decluttered palettes from the brand in the past just because they've truly improved their formula time after time and gotten better and better to where like their older palettes just weren't as fun to use anymore because their newer ones are just so great. So I don't really have palettes from them that I don't like because I've since decluttered them. Like, all the formulas I have are amazing. The color stories are so cool. But I decided just because packaging wise this isn't my favorite, I could live without this one. It's the Saga of Freya palette, and it's like a book. So we have like the pinky like reddish side, and then we also have like this side. So it's like two palettes in one, and like just the fact that it's like a double palette like this is just so kind of inconvenient for me to use. It's just not my favorite setup. I think the color stories are cool. The formulas are great, but I'm just genuinely least likely to reach for this anyways because it's just weird to use. And really, I could possibly give this one up because it's just not my favorite to use, but the packaging is so cool. I love that it looks like a book. There's two others that are like sequels that kind of go with it, like in the same collection, but they're like smaller, just regular palettes that look like books. They're not double-sided. So I'm keeping this mostly for presentation purposes. I think it looks cool. It's just not my favorite to use for practicality reasons. Moving on to Unearthly. I don't want to get rid of this one, and I'm not going to. I think it's a really cool palette, but if I had to, this is the one I could live without. It's the In the Dark palette. It looks like this, It's super cool. I love this weird, murky, smoky, grungy color story. I love the very colorful pops of shimmer, like very fairy-like. It's a very cool contrast, but I feel like I have lots of grungy tones in Unearthly. Maybe not exactly the same, not necessarily dupes or anything, but I have similar stuff. I have similar vibes, even just beyond Unearthly. I could live without this one. Do I think it's a really cool curated 8-pan? Yes, but I could survive without it. But I still don't plan to declutter it as of right now because I think it's cool and I think it's fun and I like the smokiness, but I could live without it. I can be honest with myself. Moving on next to Nomad. This was a tough one also because I love Nomad. I love Nomad so much, but trying to just think about the one that I could just, again, live without, let go of a little easier, it would probably be the Fetes Provence. It's super fun. Springtime Dream. I love the purples, yellows, pinks, oranges. I actually don't think this palette's even available anymore. And it's gorgeous. I think it's so fun. Again, I don't plan to get rid of it, but I don't know. I have so many things from Nomad. I definitely have pinks. I definitely have oranges, yellows, purples, so on and so forth. Maybe, again, not exactly the same, not exact dupes perhaps, but I could get similar vibes throughout my collection. I think this is a fun theme. I think it was curated really well, but I could live without it. This video is so tough because it really feels like I'm picking on things and I'm not trying to pick on things. I'm just trying to share my logic and do a fun little challenge. Moving on now to Lunar Beauty, and I only have 5, so it makes this one like extra hard because I have very limited options. And I knew I wasn't gonna get rid of the Moonspell palettes, either of them. They're just my favorites, like those are have to keeps. But I also love the Strawberry Moon, and then I kept the Siren Sunset for last video, so that basically left me only with the Eternal Eclipse, which, you know, I feel like if I kept the Siren Sunset in the alternative universe, just because it gave me some good difference compared to other things I was chatting about in that video anyways, if I'm keeping that one, I could probably let this one go, because this one's a similar vibe in the sense that we have neutrals and blues. It's not exactly the same. The Siren Sunset leans a lot more on cool tones, whereas this one's more warm, and the Siren Sunset has like purples and teals with the blues. It's not just blue, so they're not exactly the same by any means. I'm very happy that I have both. I love both. I plan on keeping both. But just out of my Lunar Beauty palettes that I have, this is the one I think I could let go of the easiest. I'm probably more likely to reach for that Siren Sunset one, but this one's still really, really cool. It's really moody. It's really pretty. The shimmers are super, super cool. These blues are awesome, and there's a really cool silver in here too. Moving on to Give Me Glow. This one I won't get rid of because I have such an attachment to this palette, but this was the easy option if I had to get rid of one. It's the Juicy Olive. I love this palette. I love a grungy olive vibe. This is a throwback. This is a classic love, but I mean, I could live without a monochromatic olive palette. I have 5,000 olives in my collection. If you saw the other version of this video where I only kept one from each brand, it was a very swampy, olivey lineup. I have a type and I stand by it, but just compared to the other Give Me Glow things I have, this one would just be the easiest to get rid of just because I don't play with monochromatic very often anyways, and I already know in my heart of hearts that I have other olives in my collection, so this is the only logical choice, but this is still beautiful. I'm attached to it and I do not plan on giving it up. Lethal Cosmetics. This was a really tough one. I know I keep saying that, but I really mean it this time. I didn't know what to pick. I truly didn't. There were things that I'm like, I have to keep this forever. And there's other things that I was like, I mean, I don't have to have that, but I like to have it. I ended up just going with the Midnight Serenade because even though I think this is beautiful, I love playing with this one. I think the colors are amazing and the shimmers are so pretty. I just feel like I can live without it. I just get so much more excitement out of the other Lethal palettes. And that's not even to say that this is my least favorite palette like by them because the formulas are so good and I love this moody, smoky vibe. I don't know. I just feel like I could let this one go and not feel horribly sad about it. But again, I think it's great. I think it's beautiful. It just made the most sense in my mind. Moving on to Ensley Reign. This is another one where I only own 5 palettes. So this was really, really tough. It was an easy no-brainer to pick the one that I was gonna keep if I could only keep one, but decluttering one was really, really tough. And I ended up going with the Twisted Tea Party. And I don't even know if I have a good reason why. I just could not bear to let go of the other ones. This one's super cool. I love how bright it is. Why am I getting rid of the Alice in Wonderland palettes is my question. I don't have a vendetta against Alice in Wonderland. And I think this is so cool. I love these rich, swampy jewel tones and all these beautiful shimmers. This is such a lovely palette. I just feel like with the other things that I own from Ensley Reign, I couldn't bear to part with them. Like the Cold Moon is a cool toned, neutral adjacent lover's dream. Obviously the Harvest Moon is one I kept. The Groovy Garden is a new one that I'm just obsessed with. I think it's so pretty. The Flower Moon is just so cute. I almost picked that one, but I was like, I can't give up the Flower Moon. It's just so cool. And then the Lands of Enchantment was like, no questions asked. So really that only left this one. And again, I don't plan on decluttering it, but it just ended up being the option that I had to go with for this scenario. Moving on to Gourmande Girls. This was actually a very easy pick. Not because I don't like this palette, but just because everything else was like a non-negotiable. I have to keep it. But it's the Secret Grove. They came out with this sometime last year, but honestly, it's a little forgettable. Like, it's really cute. I like this vibe, but just compared to the palette she's done with like Doodles by the Bunny and the new one she did with Steff's Beauty Sash, why would I choose this one over one of the other ones? You know what I mean? The other ones are just so cool. I love the layouts. I love the color stories, the formulas. And I mean, this color story is cute. The formula's so cute as well. I wish there were more shimmers though. I am nitpicky about that. I'm not as obsessed with this one as I am the other ones. So I think just by default, this is my least favorite one from the brand and the one I could most easily give up. I'll be honest, that's another one where if I don't find more love for it by the end of the year, that's potential to get decluttered in my 2024 declutter in December. Not that I'm like trying to plan ahead of like what I'm gonna get rid of, but just reflecting for this video, I'm like, yeah, I could definitely live without that one. It wouldn't be that hard. Moving on to Bella Beauty Bar. I tell ya, I did not know what to pick. I love Bella Beauty Bar, and the things that I have, I love dearly. I've decluttered a couple things that just weren't my cup of tea, or there's just better things from the brand, or they've improved. And this is gonna shock you, but I have a logical reason why I picked it. It's the Strange and Unusual palette. Love this palette. Grungy, Beetlejuicy, Dream. This is magical. This is amazing. The reason I picked this one is because I still have the old version. Ever since they came out with this palette, which I loved. I thought it was so good, but the shimmers were definitely the star of the show. Since this release, they've really improved their matte formula. So all of the releases since this palette have had amazing mattes, and then the shimmers have always been amazing. So formula-wise, this one's just arguably not as good as some of the other palettes they've launched. And they have since re-released this palette with the better mattes. And if I had to declutter a palette in this fantasy scenario, even though I love this theme and color story with my entire being, it just makes sense for me to declutter one with the lesser formula for the mattes, you know what I mean? And then no one said I can't rebuy any of these, so I could declutter this one and then rebuy the newer version, because it's technically a different palette, right? That's my logic at least. Last but not least, we have Ace Beauty, and this was an easy one because I've already decluttered this once technically. I decluttered it, I don't know if it was last year's declutter or the declutter before. It must have been 2 declutters ago. I don't think this was a couple months ago because this has been out much longer than that. But regardless, I decluttered it in an eyeshadow palette declutter and undecluttered it. I never do that. I just don't. Like, if I declutter something, I declutter it. Like, I don't feel like this sense of, what have I done? But I felt like maybe this one deserved more of a chance. So I undecluttered it, and I'm not mad that I still have it. I think I'm gonna get a lot of use out of it for spring and summer. I'm just feeling the vibes with it. But because I was already okay with letting it go once, I could probably be okay with letting it go again, and maybe it would stick this time. But it's the Palettopoly palette. They came out with this whole card game where it's basically palette bingo. You don't need a whole card game to do palette bingo. Pull up a random number generator on your phone, add the number of shadows in said number generator, and then randomly generate your shades. You don't need a whole card game. I feel like the card game was very much like a gimmick, do it one time and now it's done kind of thing. But the palette itself is still cool. I think it's a very fun kind of like weird, chaotic, but in a good way. I like the metallic shades. I like the pops of grunge with the pops of bright. Overall, this is a cool one. I'm not like head over heels obsessed with it the way that I am some of my other Ace Beauty palettes, and I can't even say this is my least favorite, but because I technically did almost declutter it once, I figured that just made sense to pick it again for this video. And yeah, that's my video chatting about if I had to declutter one palette from all 19 of these brands, what would I pick? This was painful, but it was also fun. I implore you to join me on this challenge. Whether you have a YouTube channel, you could film your own video or leave your answers in the comments. Just pick some brands or all your brands and let me know which palette you would declutter if you had to declutter one from each of them. I hope you had fun watching this. I had fun doing it. If you made it to the end of this video, let me think of a scenario that's on topic. Out of your last 10 most recently used emojis, if you had to get rid of one of them and never use it again, what would it be? And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. It helps my channel out a lot. And if you're not already, you can follow me over on Instagram. I'm BATTYBEAN there as well. You can also subscribe. I'm posting most days over here. You can also join my channel memberships. Link to sign up will be down below. You'll get fun little perks, including a members only video once a month. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Okay, bye.